Hey there, boils and ghouls. Welcome to this episode of Halloweekly. Nick Rollins here with
George Haley.
And this episode, we are going to review Annabelle, the creation, Annabelle 2.
I think it's just Annabelle creation.
Annabelle creation.
There might be some punctuation like colon. I don't know.
And before that, they showed what felt like 3-minute new footage.
It was pretty substantial when you include Stephen King's introduction.
It was like half of a scene from the new It.
Amazing.
So, stay tuned.
So here we are. It's August 10th. We go to see a new release movie, and we were psyched to see Annabelle Creation because we heard good reviews. What we did not know going in was that we were going to see an almost complete scene from the new It, which blew our minds.
But before they showed it, Stephen King just comes on screen, and it's just him talking. He's just basically saying shit you expect him to say, like, "Hi, I'm Stephen King, and in this episode," or not this episode. He
should podcast. But
yeah,
no,
he should.
It's not right.
He should. Just saying, like, he's glad the film's going on screen. Hope you see it.
Yeah, but how fucking badass. So, like, they showed all these, like, slick packaged trailers before this, right? I can't remember what we saw, but we saw trailers, and they were all
Flatliners, which looked kind of cool.
Yeah, that did.
A movie about the one lawyer guy, and then some Polaroid.
Oh, Marshall, and then Polaroid, which is crap, and then. But all of them were like they had the same beats, the same pacing.
Yeah.
Like we saw a remake of Rocky, but it wasn't. It was Bruce Lee, but it's
I forgot they even had that trailer.
Right, it's basically Rocky 10, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're watching these trailers, and they all have the same beats and the same thing, and then the screen goes black, and then up comes Stephen King because he's such a badass. They just put a camera in his face, and he was like, "Hi, I'm Stephen King. I'm about to fuck your life up again." Like literally, it was just like, right? Like it's the only like authentic moment in any of that trailer, collage that we
they showed before the movie. Yeah.
And then they rolled out It.
Yeah, they showed. So basically, if you haven't seen, I'm sure by the time this goes live, usually like when they show clips like that, they usually go online for everyone to watch afterwards.
True. And if it didn't, you're hearing it this weekend, you should go see Annabelle Creation because it's amazing.
Yep.
And experience the trailer.
But the It trailer, holy shit. So it's basically just the scene where Georgie, it's the scene with Georgie in the boat.
Yep.
And it's like the first big chunk we get to actually hear Pennywise talk. And for everyone who was like, worried or flat out just was not on board with it because it wasn't Tim Curry, like, fucking Christ, like, this is good shit.
Yep.
This is good shit, man. And like, I'm very optimistic. And what did you think about it? I thought, well, before I just asked you, let me just get this out here because I'm real excited about this movie. I just have to go for it. This is fucking dope. The first few lines, I was like, why is he talking so weird? This doesn't make any sense because Tim Curry from the bat was just, "Hiya, Georgie." Mm-hmm. And this guy, it sounded like he was like flubbing and like talking kind of weird. And then it hit me like, this is a motherfucking clown. Or it's an alien. Mm-hmm. He's trying to figure out how the fuck to communicate with this kid, like in real time. Mm-hmm. And when I thought about that, I was like, holy shit, this is creepy because he's trying to figure out like, how do I make this happen?
Yeah, the thing I thought was super fascinating about this is I could care less about the Tim Curry versus Skarsgård debate. I don't give two shits about that. I think it's pointless. But there's a push-pull thing happening that I can tell from this trailer that gets me super intrigued about this movie and super hopeful. So It feeds off your fears. Right, it takes the form of things you're afraid of. Right, that's how it lives. And in this trailer, what we realize is that it is something that lives to scare you, but before it scares you, it has to seduce you. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to figure out how to talk to a kid in a friendly way before he scares the shit out of like either him or whoever he comes across.
Yeah.
Because he feeds off fear. So those are two like divergent motivations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that you were a Girl Scout, Boy Scout person, and you're trying to sell cookies at the door. And while you're trying to sell cookies at the door, you're also trying to get someone to step out of the door so you can knife them in the forehead. Because your pitch is going to get a little weird at that point.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so Pennywise has a weird pitch. It's like, woohoo, look at me, I'm funny, but I'm also not. So, like, you could tell that there was this, like...
Oh, his voice, like...
Right? It was really off, and then on, and then off, and then on. And that concept is so great that there could be 50 actors who could pull that off. Mm-hmm. There could be 50 actors who I would be interested in watching do that because the concept is cool.
Yeah.
So put this, like, one person could only do this ever shit behind us.
Yeah.
Right? The idea is so interesting that I would watch a whole shit ton of people do it. I'd watch Charlize Theron do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just a cool concept.
And just see.
So let's just move on and watch it.
And it was so good. And I wanted to watch it. Like, after the trailer was over, before the movie started, I leaned over to George and was like, we're good to go. Like,
yeah, we could just leave now. We paid
that was
like
worth
whatever, right?
Yeah, that was worth $16.
Yeah. No, it was absolutely amazing. And, you know, I've seen some shot-by-shot comparisons of the original rainfall newspaper boat scene, you know, comparatively. And I know there's a couple things that are different in the new one. They do like an overhead shot.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And that I don't think is in the original, whatever. But to me, like, when you're thinking about horror, a kid out in weather he shouldn't be in, that his parents would disapprove of, with something he thinks is valuable that's just actually a bunch of folded fucking papers no one gives a shit about.
Yeah.
Who loses his life because he's trying to retrieve it out of a sewer. This is the perfect horror opening. Oh. It's perfect.
I
will watch 10 versions of this movie.
I hope it goes online tomorrow.
Totally.
Tomorrow being Friday to watch it, because it was so good.
It was fucking cool, but it's not Annabelle. So,
but okay, so
Annabelle
that's our
Creation,
review
right?
for the
Yes.
It trailer, because it was worth reviewing.
Yeah, totally amazing.
Okay, Annabelle Creation. So I guess we'll just take it from the top. Well, first, let's start with the fact that we personally like the other Conjuring films.
Yes.
Right. But we hadn't seen the first Annabelle film.
So we're in a weird position because neither of us has seen the original Annabelle.
Yeah.
And this is a new trend in horror where you do prequels that are better than the movies that are chronologically ahead of them.
Yeah.
Hashtag Ouija.
Yeah.
Right. So
technically the second film in the
right, but we didn't know the Annabelle mythology or any of that stuff. So
yeah,
the first question answered is this a standalone movie you can enjoy without having seen the first one? Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Is it confusing because you haven't seen the first one? No. Right. Probably bad news for the first one that you don't need it at all.
Yeah,
for this one. But this one was fucking amazing. It was really, really good. I have deep issues with a couple things in this movie, but overall, super cool.
So for the
we go to see it. The audience is super receptive. Set the scene.
All right. Well, first, let me just let the audience know. We're going to do probably about 15, 20 minutes. We're going to try to keep it spoiler free, and then we're just going to fucking knock on the door.
Then we'll dive in
and just go to town.
Yep.
No, the audience was pretty. I mean, it was the first showing on a Thursday, so we went to the first possible showing.
Yep.
Today, and it was pretty packed for a Thursday evening for Annabelle Creation.
Yes, it was.
And I've been checking like the Rotten Tomatoes scores, like seeing like just to like gauge like where people's at, and it went up and down between like 69 to 70-ish area, and then it kind of floated there. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. But going into that, I sort of had high hopes for it.
Sure.
And luckily it paid off. The other thing we were talking about going into the theater was I was sort of hoping it was packed, because I think horror movies are a lot scarier with like a big crowd because like the energy,
reacting to it, and
the energy's vamped up. We had one jackass in the theater that we didn't talk. And
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
I knew it was fucking him. So this guy, he kept like some stupid, typical horror movie stuff would happen where someone runs or someone does something. You'd hear him like, and then he fucking gets up to to go to the bathroom or something, or take a shit or something. I don't know. And I knew it was that fucking guy.
It was,
because he looked like fucking Buzz from Home Alone.
He did.
And I was like, that's that son of a bitch. And then he turns around the corner and he goes, "Oh!" And everyone starts laughing. I'm like, it's not even fucking funny. Like
he tried to produce his own jump scare on the way out of the theater. And the theater kind of like jumped a little bit and then kind of laughed because they were like, what an idiot. And then he left. And then he came back. But the best part of this story is that he came back and his, whoever the fuck he was with, wife, girlfriend, like enabler, was like, you know, kind of sinking down in her chair. Like, I don't know this dude. And then he comes back because everyone knows he's an idiot. And then he left with her before the movie ended. Did you watch them? They crawled out like 5 minutes before the climax.
I was like, what the shit's this?
Are you like, he's trying to beat traffic? You're not the fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah. And it's like 9 o'clock.
Oh my God, what an idiot.
Okay. So that was the theater situation.
Yeah,
Other than that, it was great. And we sat next to, I think the lady to the left of me and the two women behind me like freaked the fuck out. On every scene. And like whenever people flip the fuck out during a horror film, like it makes it like a little bit more enjoyable.
Totally.
And it heightens the tension.
Almost totally.
For me, it does.
For me, it does too, unless when they're flipping out, they kick my chair, which happened to me a lot tonight. I was like watching the movie and I was having like 3D depth vision, like with a CinemaScope, like extravaganza, because my head was like 4 feet forward like half the time because people kept kicking my chair. But anyways, that
amazing. You can't get that at home theater. So it was a pretty packed theater.
Yes.
Film starts after the It trailer. The It trailer was like the perfect fucking warm up to a movie.
Totally. Same era-ish of Annabelle creation, so particularly suitable, right? Like both.
Yeah, like it felt like it was
50s, 40s, 50s, old-timey, right?
Yeah. Well, right off the bat, I just want to say all these Conjuring films and shit. Even though we didn't see Annabelle, I think they are shot fucking purty. Mm-hmm. They look amazing.
They do.
There's a lot of cool. There's two things I noticed that these Conjuring films, Conjuring Universe style films do. Two things. They do a lot of scary shit out of focus. Mm-hmm. In the background, which happens a lot in this film. Mm-hmm. So like someone's up towards the camera and you look at the back of the room and something's moving, but you can't notice. They did that really well in the second Conjuring. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of this in Annabelle. And then
that was the first introduction to Annabelle, actually. She was way a blurry off corner. Right?
And it was really fucking good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that these films do is they do a lot of like, well, it's not going to help for the podcast, but like the camera... They have these like kind of cool camera movements where like the camera like sort of does like twists like 180.
I'm so glad you said that because there was this amazing shot that scooted over the creepy house, twisted down, upside down, and then right side back up and was panning into people leaving through the front door.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a badass shot.
That was a cool shot. And then there was another shot where the camera went into the room where they had originally locked up the Annabelle doll, and then it looked up, and that was the transition into the bottom of the well.
Yep.
I was like, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really pretty shots.
There are some really virtuoso shots that, like,
and the color of the film is really good too. It's like it kind of felt like I would really love if this guy. I think he did Lights Out. I would love to see him after this do like a Texas Chainsaw.
Totally
style film because it kind of reminded
that dirty,
me,
muddy.
Yeah, it had that feel to it, which really, really played out. Because this film, we'll get into this in the spoilers. I won't spoil anything. Is pretty much like a haunted house / monstery kind of film. We'll get more into detail after the spoiler part.
No, it's literally haunted house. It's that. And it's one of the things, one of my issues with this movie is that it felt like the prelude to a ride. Mm-hmm. Like I could see strapping into a Disney Haunted Mansion chair and going through light bulbs twisting themselves out and lanterns popping and, things on the wall turning upside down.
Yeah.
It was a little ridey for me, but there were some actually really, really cool attention to detail moments. The first introduction to the house, the orphans, which is really important in the story. They have nowhere else to go, literally. Mm-hmm. They're orphans, right? So they're coming to this house. This is the only place they have to stay, and they're super enthusiastic about being in such a nice place. And when they come in, there's this detailing on the windows, and it looks like crosses.
Yeah.
Right? And the crosses at the bottom ridge look like crosses, but the crosses on the top ridge are upside down crosses. Right? So you're already introduced to like holy versus unholy. Mm-hmm. Like it's in the details. This is a movie with terrifying crown molding, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, first off, let's talk about the first, I guess, death of the film, because this isn't a spoiler. This comes
first death. There's like only 3 total.
Yeah, but this is still the first death.
Okay.
I ain't wrong. Because this ain't a spoiler, and this was a gripe that we both had with the film. And this is pretty much what kicks off most of what we've seen in the Conjuring Universe films.
Yes.
I guess.
Oh, this is terrible.
Is the death of like Annabelle, like the actual daughter of the 2 parents. Probably if they just did that a little different. I could see that being like why critics and people are like, that's because it just wasn't that well done. So let's explain. A lug nut kills a little girl. All right. They do that cool shot George mentioned. They talk back and forth. The dialogue's pretty decent. And then for one reason or another, because it's a horror film, they have a pop tire in the truck in the middle of the road, and there's no one fucking there. There's no one in miles of them. And this guy's trying to fix a tire, and she's like, well, maybe we should get some help from this truck. And the guy's like, I got it, it's fine. And so he gets the tire off, and a lug nut, like, the truck's barreling down like fucking like 60 miles an hour on the dirt road, and it's just that truck barreling down the road. The other couple, the guy finally gets the fucking tire off. A luggy fucking goes in the middle of the road while there's a truck barreling down the road, and Annabelle goes, I got it, and just fucking walks into a goddamn truck.
Yeah, it's Pet Sematary Gage Kite scenario.
Yeah,
but worse. And I sort of forgive it. The way it was blocked and staged was super irritating. The only reason I forgive it is what's revealed later. Fuck. Spoilers. Spoiler. What's revealed later is that the demons are manipulating the parents. The demon is manipulating the parents to try to reconnect with their dead child, which is very Pet Sematary, mm-hmm. but in a more like Paranormal Activity way, not so much like zombie Walking Dead kid way.
Yeah.
And you can see a demon exploiting parents' grief when they lose kids in a particularly stupid way.
Yeah.
Which happens every day across the world, right? So it didn't knock out the demon part of the movie for me. What knocked out the part of the movie for me was, why would you stage it that way and distance us as the audience from being sympathetic for someone who isn't qualified to chew gum?
Yeah.
I mean, she shouldn't have died that way. That was terrible, right? The whole rest of the plot I felt like was safe from that dumb part, but the dumb part was dumb.
The way I'm not a writer, but the only way I would have done it a little differently is if somehow the dad was being a dick and he told, he was forcing Annabelle to help him get the tire off, and then maybe then all of a sudden they finally get it loose, and then as the truck. But then, I don't know how you.
I think they were actually doing that. That's the problem. Is I think they were doing the families in the car. Everyone's telling Dad he's lost, and Dad's like, "No, I'm not lost. I got it." Like he literally did the "I got it."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Right? So I think they were doing that. I think they thought they were doing that. The problem is that when someone does something so crushingly dumb in a horror movie, you're like, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever.
Her actually getting smacked by the truck looked a little cool. Like the truck gets
Yeah,
like right up
they
to her.
filmed that pretty well.
So like that looked cool, but
Right.
the fact that like if you just waited, the truck was just gonna drive right over the fucking lug nut, and you could have just picked up and be like, well, that was crazy. I almost got my brains bashed in by the fucking
Right.
the grill of that truck.
But see, I don't want to go too far afield here, but
this is probably the worst thing of the film, and it's not even.
No, there's
no,
worse things for me in the film. But,
well, it was the worst thing for me, and it wasn't enough to ruin a film.
No, totally. No, nothing ruined this film. It's a great film. But the thing that, like, when you look at The Exorcist, which is one of the few horror movies you can pick out where they're victimizing a young girl, which is what the architecture of the movie is built on, right?
Yeah.
You can't figure out why exactly they're selecting out Regan in The Exorcist, but there are these gravitas moments, like when they're diagnosing her in the hospital, where you realize that there are bigger stakes. And the fact that the whole Conjuring universe is premised on the fact that some dumbass got a flat tire feels like like they didn't save it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it feels like a little weak for what
and we'll explain why we're saying the whole Conjuring universe goes in.
Yes.
In the spoilers, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it's kind of a cool part that I think most fans would like to just see what happens. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the base film, and then we'll go into spoilers. This film, to me, if I had to break it down to you, was a pretty decent intro, and then what felt like 7, 8 like big scary moments intercut, and then the finale. And every single one of those like scary moments and stuff, they build up tension so well in this film. Where a lot of people, they'll probably say like, oh, it was really predictable. And even if it is, it was fucking well done. And it had me on the edge of my seat every single time.
Yep. And it got the audience too. But the thing, so I didn't like the predictable ride aspect of it, but that was something that you and I talked about right when we left the movie. Was I felt like the writing let down the other elements of the movie a little bit, because the actors were amazing and they were super believable.
Yep.
And you were invested in all of them. And, you know, as the movie progresses, the little details that they had were so good and so subtle, and they didn't rush them.
No,
they were smart about how they, placed them. And it was a really, really interesting way to grow into this story of. So one of the things in horror movies that is intriguing is, like high school, what are the cliques? Who's going to stand up for who?
Yeah.
Who's got who's back, right? And in this movie, it was pretty clear from the outset that there were a bigger set of people in the movie who were shallower, who sort of got each other's backs, but they were going to bail. And there was a tighter group that were not going to bail on each other no matter what.
Yeah.
And you were really invested in that tighter group, which is the nun and the Janice and her best friend.
Yeah.
Right.
Heads up, we sort of jumped right into the spoilers, so I'm going to give you fans a good 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going forward with spoilers. Back to the show.
So, and the people were expendable, and I expected them all to get executed.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Nope.
Which was weird. Like, so
we're into spoiler territory now.
Yeah, totally. But it was a weird, like it was a horror movie that I think a lot of people will be. The reason it's probably 70% instead of 90% is it's a horror movie that pulls its punches in some respects, in terms of the kill count, but doesn't pull its punches in terms of the emotions. Right, the emotions were super important to the movie. So that's, and that's where I actually get really aggravated with where it went, because big spoiler alert, they took out my favorite character and made her the villain for the next steps of the franchise. And it pissed me off.
Well, she's no longer the next step of the franchise. We don't know what happened in Annabelle first one. So she's probably already gone.
Yeah, no,
and
they showed at the end where she went. But
but right. By the time Ed and Lorraine get involved, they got Annabelle in a case. True. Yeah. Do not open.
True.
Under any circumstances.
Totally.
No, I don't know if I didn't. That didn't really, like I said, the devil cured her polio.
Yes.
I didn't really mind that. I do see where it was a little bit disappointing, because I thought like they were gonna have like the girl with like a handicap, because that was what the nun said that too. She's like, you're so much stronger than everyone else, and blah 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 blah. And I thought, oh man, that'd be kind of cool if like the girl with the disability end up like being the final girl and save the day. But they're like, no, she's absolutely gonna fuck you up.
But actually, what was interesting to me was I felt like, holy shit, I'm in a theater in 2017 watching Suspiria, because there's only one male character in this movie. Did I miss someone?
Well, there's the main like father guy in the house, and then like the priest for like a scene
for a second, and the police guy at the end. But
that's about
it's almost all female characters, right? So it was just I thought that was super refreshing, right? That you were dealing with like an entirely female perspective of what was happening, and I suspect with the doll motif that sort of makes sense, right?
Yeah,
whatever. But there were just really just like Suspiria, there were shots in this movie that were just so beautiful. You and I talked about the whole price of admission to me was worth the whole sequence where the Annabelle doll and Janice have kind of joined forces in evil, and Janice's friend is like, this doll's hurting my friend, and she sneaks down in her little fucking slippers, whatever, grabs the doll, creeps out, grabs a lantern, runs across this gorgeous field, and is like, I'm gonna throw this doll down a bottomless well, and so it can't hurt my friend anymore. And the nun, who you rightly point out is slightly miscast, shows up and is like, what are you doing? And she's like, this doll's hurting my friend, I'm gonna get rid of this doll. And she throws the doll down, and that entire sequence is this beautiful, like I could almost see the storyboards in my head, while we were watching it. And it reminded me a lot of that movie that I rave about all the time, the Onibaba movie, because it's a similar setting.
Yeah.
And then the nun witnesses the supernatural events for the first time, because the well shakes and the lid goes off, whatever. But the way those scenes were crafted was so beautiful and memorable and scary, like that I could forget.
It did a little bit of two things. It did like a little Evil Dead type thing.
Totally.
So when she's running, the camera. There's a few things they try to do that I want to get to in a little bit. That they try to do a little Evil Dead, but didn't quite work out. But in that particular scene, it did with the camera movement. She's running, and the camera's following her at the same pace. But then all of a sudden, the camera starts to move in really fast, and you hear this like build-up music at the back, and then she turns around, and then it slows down and stops. That was fucking cool.
Great sound design. Yep.
That's what I really, really loved about that scene. And second, the only reason we mentioned that we think the nun might have been miscast is we've never seen a nun who was like a babe.
Well, funny.
We were talking about that on the way out. We were like, in real life, they would have brought some like nun who was like, 70.
Right. Well, like in The Exorcist, the Fox TV series, like the deliverer nun, she's like, she looks like someone who could be on like a box of oatmeal. Right. So, right, that's the thing. But I have seen one other nun that was like that, which was we did the podcast of Black Narcissus, where I picked it, and that nun is pretty attractive too. But right, exactly. There was like a lot of casting manipulation going on. But I'm super interested in the Evil Dead fall down moments. What other?
When before they take the polio girl, she's talking to, I think, the doll, or no, the ghost of Annabelle is at the mirror, or at the window, and she goes, "What do you?" She's like, "I need something." And she's like, "What's that?" And it turns around, she's like, "Your soul." And I was like, "Oh,
yeah, that was bad.
No.
Yeah.
You can only do that if, like, you go into this. If the film from the beginning knows what it is, you like Evil Dead can pull that off.
Yeah,
like you can do that at S Mart.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But that felt a little weird. But it wasn't like fucking groundbreaking for the film, or like ruined the film by any chance.
No. But you're exactly right. I felt the exact same thing when I watched it. There's a reason that Evil Dead 2 skewed towards comedy, because that becomes sort of comedy.
Yeah.
Right? When something rushes towards you, when you're like, "What do you want?" And they're like, "Nothing." Your soul.
Yeah, you're like,
I mean,
you're like no.
It's kind of right. So, but this had no comedy in it. So, I mean,
that part felt a little weird. But all the other scary buildups in the film, like, completely make up for that. Like the part that I thought there was two scenes, and I don't have them in any particular order. But when the two older girls are underneath the blanket making up a story,
that was so good.
Holy fuck, dude! When they were like so the wife, who's like kind of like bedridden the whole film, and has this like cool Phantom of the Opera mask. She keeps ringing this bell when she needs help. So anytime you hear the bell, it's just creepy. And so the two girls are underneath the blanket, like making up like lore for this woman. She's like, she'll call your name until you have to turn around and see her. Then she eats your flesh, and then. They hear like the bell going off in the back, and then it gets closer and then closer and then closer. Then it's in the fucking room, and I love how the Conjuring films do that out of focus shot, because then they have the flashlights under the bed, and then when she just fucking comes in the front, because it's one girl on the left, one girl on the right, and like white space in the middle from the blanket, and you just see like her fucking shadow.
So good.
Oh, dude, that part got me so.
That was the way it was framed. It made me want to print it out and put it on a wall. It was so good. It was so good, and it was such a fuck you to that terrible Ghost Story movie, because this movie made Sheets terrifying again.
Yeah.
Like, what's the hashtag for that? Make America great. It would be make Sheets terrifying. I don't know, whatever. But
yeah.
It did it because when the doll, she throws a blanket over the doll or a sheet over the doll, and the doll stands up and walks towards Janice. Like, this literally made silhouettes and sheets terrifying again. Like, it worked, right?
And what I liked about it is they didn't show a whole lot of like the actual demon's face.
No,
you get a few good shots of it, but overall, it's pretty minimal.
No, it sort of overdid the creaky joints sound effect.
But that gets me like, it's so unnatural and jarring looking. Like it works for me every time. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it had the whole Asian dark-haired girl jerky motion thing going, which was fine for a little bit, but a little overdone. But it doesn't matter, because in the end when you get to what the actual root of the story is, the root of the story is, when you focus on it, is that there's a family that's desperate to resurrect a dead, lost child, which is the monkey's paw. And it is Pet Sematary. And I thought one of the most effective moments of this movie was the peaceful moment, when the parents made the deal with the devil that their daughter could come back into the doll.
Well, technically, they didn't make a deal with the devil. They said any god or entity.
Right, totally.
And then the devil's like, what?
Right, exactly, right. Right.
You guys got a room available?
You rang, right. But it wasn't explicit, but one of the most effective moments of the movie to me was when they were telling their story, and they were telling the audience that their daughter was back, and they couldn't hold her, and they couldn't touch her, and they couldn't play with her, and they couldn't interact with her the way they did when she was alive. But I think the mom said something like, it was great to have like this buzz of activity back in the house.
Yeah.
And they would catch glimpses of their daughter, and she would be running back and forth and giggling, and before everything turned evil, it was actually creepier, which I think is a great horror movie moment, where it's scarier when it's not scary. Because when they did the demon creaky black goo claws stuff, I wasn't as impressed as I was by the fact that realizing that these parents were getting played. Right. So the worst part of getting played is when you don't know you're getting played. They realized they were getting played later, right? When they walked in the room and their daughter was like a black horned gooey entity.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, that's not my daughter. But early in the process, it looked exactly like their daughter. It sounded like their daughter. And that's super creepy that they were getting played at the moment and didn't know they were getting played.
Yeah.
So I thought this movie had like a really interesting layer there that a lot of horror movies don't get to, which was cool.
And it wasn't like a shitty like mid story, because I'll say the backstory would be like her before she died. But that telling of the story was actually pretty good, and it fit really well into the Conjuring universe in the way that they usually tell the stories of the spirits or the demons or the
Speaking
whatever.
of the Conjuring universe, we see Valak.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was one of the spoilers. You see Valak for just like a second in a photograph, and oh my God, it was fucking creepy, because I think
was great.
She's like, the design of Valak is fucking terrifying. Oh my, she was hiding in the shadow in the photo. I was like, oh my fucking Christ,
That was great.
This makes me real excited to see. I think they're calling it like The Nun right now.
Yes.
I don't know if that'll have a different title later. This makes me excited for that.
Totally.
Because she is fucking terrifying.
Yep.
I love seeing Valak. They didn't mention Ed or Lorraine from The Conjuring.
Nope.
I was hoping that like maybe at the end they would do like The Conjuring does like that freeze frame thing, and like the credits kind of roll up and it tells you like, the story. They didn't do any of that. But what they did give us was a scary scarecrow,
They did.
which I have just been like, Alex has a short story that I fucking love. And I think scarecrows are fucking dope, because I'm a big fan of Scarecrow from Batman. And this film gives us kind of, not really, I mean, it's the demon controlling the Scarecrow, but for a minute we get what I would call a fantastic Scarecrow horror.
Oh my
film.
God, the design on this was amazing.
And it wasn't cheesy.
It was creepy before anything happened.
Oh yeah, they showed the Scarecrow when the girls are exploring the barn, and the face has like these like sunken parts.
It was creepy then.
And it was scary. And then when the motherfucker came to life, and that's when the gooey monster actually looked the coolest, is when he was in the Scarecrow, but he ripped his teeth open. That is when it looked fucking dope.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So you get a little bit of a nice Scarecrow.
Yeah, totally. And one of the really cool things to me about this, that whole like sequence was, and one of the things the movie does really well there are comedic moments that feel real. The ultimate like comedic moment in horror to me that feels the way this movie's comedic moments feel is in Poltergeist. So the original Poltergeist, have you seen the original Poltergeist?
Yep.
In the original Poltergeist, at the end, the TV is the source of all the problems, right? So they go to the hotel room and they shut the door and they're safe, and then all of a sudden the door opens and the TV just rolls out on the balcony and the door shuts, because they're not going to have a TV in their room, right? And this movie did those moments, like when the cop shows up at the end and he's like, so the doll's not evil anymore. Who wants it? They're like, no. And they close the trunk on it, right? There's these moments of these, the movie gives you where there's this comedy of whatever. And I felt like the movie did a really good job with these comedic moments. Like the Scarecrow had his own comedic moment, and the bad characters had their own comedic moments. And it was interesting where the movie was really good at the payoffs for the things you were introduced to in the beginning.
Yeah.
The chair, which is totally the Gremlins chair.
Oh, dude! As soon as they introduced that chair, it's the first thing I thought of. I was like, someone's gonna get sent out a window on that thing.
Right, totally. And there was this weird, almost like fishing theme in this movie where she tries to escape in the electric chair down the stairs, and then the demon reels her back up.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the gun, and that was the comedic moment. So the Janice's best friend is hiding from the demon, and she's got this little pop gun that shoots out a little ball on a thread, and she pops it out, and then the demon grabs the ball and it's floating up in the air, and she's yanking it, and she yanks the gun out of her hands. Like there's this really interesting back and forth moments which were scary, but I could hear in the audience people like nervously giggling or sort of laughing when
Yeah.
things happen because there were comedic moments in the movie, right? So I thought it was cool that it did this balance of not just scary, but also we're toying with you.
Yeah, and there wasn't a whole lot of like cheap jump scares. There's a few, but
Oh my god, it opens with a terrible one.
Oh yeah,
with the dad.
With the dad, but that's fair because
Yeah.
it starts out kind of lighthearted, but whenever it goes into like one of like the main like something bad's about to happen scene, it just builds up perfectly.
Totally.
To it, like the way it just ramps up. It doesn't just throw you into it like some of like the bad horror films do. They're just like,
Right.
"Boo, you're in a scary horror like scene now. Be scared." Like this film's like it's a little bit of like, "What the fuck is that?" I'm gonna explore, which most rooms I would have never explored in my entire life, but they did because it's a horror film.
Right.
And I thought that was really well. Really
I thought that was good. And then the thing that we're always looking out for in horror movies is where do they excel? And this movie definitely excelled in the casting, the acting,
music,
the music, the sounds, the sound design.
Sound was good too.
Holy crap, was amazing. And it was the little details.
Yeah.
Like they really nailed. I never ever got taken out of the movie. I never looked at a car or a background or clothes and thought I'm not in this world. Like they nailed that fucking world.
And and cinematography on top of that too, and creature design. Granted, it's one demon usually taking a form of a bunch of manipulating the objects, but it's still
I felt like the movie did Francis Ford Coppola is a genius, and that moment in Bram Stoker's Dracula where he retreats back into the closet and you see his glowing eyes and then he dissolves into rats.
Yeah.
Like that moment where he retreats back into shadows and you just see his eyes. This movie did that like 5 times.
Oh, but it was so good.
So it was good, but I mean, it was probably 2 times too many. But it was.
No, it worked because it didn't give you a clear picture of the demon. So even though you saw its eyes,
true,
you hardly it's sort of like what people say. They liked about like what was it like. Cat people or some shit like that. Like the imagination is a lot scarier. The film did a lot of that shit. And,
it did,
and it worked.
It never gave you a clear view of.
There's a few times you get a clear image, but it's not like I'm sure someone will be able to like get a nice image of it when it comes out. But I couldn't tell you what the exact design of the demon looked like after seeing it, which I think kind of is a good thing.
I can tell you what the exact design of the demon is, and I think it's one of the strengths of the movie. The exact design of the demon is Janice. And that's what really pissed me off was I didn't want to lose her. And when a movie's done such a good job of investing me in a character and I don't want to lose them, I was mad at the time when I was watching it. But absorbing it like a couple hours after, I'm like, that movie really did a good job of fucking with me. I did not want to lose that character and I lost her. And even movies that are super great, like The Shining, for example. I never wanted to lose Danny, and I never wanted to lose Shelley Duvall. I didn't care if I lost Jack because he was clearly nuts, right? And I actually didn't care if I lost Halloran, the guy who comes to rescue them, because he's a really peripheral character. You know what I mean? So the movie worked out kind of the way I wanted it to work out. The 2 people I wanted to live lived. The guy I didn't care about died, and the other guy I didn't care about died, and like it sort of worked. This movie crossed the line. Like I lost someone I didn't want to lose. And that's sort of brave.
Yeah.
Like it sort of fucked with me and it's going to bother me. And I know it's going to bother me. And next week I'm going to be like, shopping somewhere and I'm going to be like, fuck.
You're going to see,
I'm going to be mad.
Like crutches or something. You're like,
I'm just going to be mad.
Janice.
Right? Like, exactly. So like the fact that it pulled that off, I think was making me mad at the time, but I think it's probably to its credit. And she made a terrifying, sub villain, alternate villain, parallel villain, whatever she was. And that moment where they traded dolls, which I thought, I don't know that we can even do enough credit to the writing of that because we just saw it and I would probably have to sit on it to figure it out. But the 2 best friend characters, Janice and her best friend, they trade dolls. And the reason they trade dolls, like 2/3 of the way into the movie, is they have to sleep separately, which is not how the movie started. The movie started was you're in a nice house, they have a nice motorized chair, you can stay on the same floor, but now they've been divided.
Yeah.
So now the handicapped girl has to sleep on the bottom floor. Her best friend has to sleep. They can't be together anymore. So it's already sort of heartbreaking. And when they split up, they trade dolls, and the reason they trade dolls is the dolls they trade each looks like the other one.
Yeah.
So now they
because that was her line.
Right. She doesn't get to spend time with a friend, but I get to spend time with a doll that looks like you, right? And that horrible scene in the last one of the last scenes when her friend sees her possessed friend at the bottom of the stairs, and she has the doll that looks like her in her hand, and she goes, "You know what I like about this doll? You know what I really like about this doll?
Yeah.
It looks just like you." And she's stabbing it in the fucking face.
That was the same line in the bus where she was like, "Oh, this doll's so great."
And that's emotionally complicated and horrible and kind of bothers me. So I mean, the movie bothered me, which is what a horror movie should do.
Which is a great thing because a lot of it was the child actors who were fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. It was.
The more we think about it, there really wasn't a bad performance in the movie. And horror films usually get that's usually what they get. Usually get a few bad performances. People are like, "Oh, it's a horror film." This was like, nope. We're gonna bring the heat on this one.
The weirdest part about this movie is, and it's probably my deficiency because I haven't seen the first Annabelle, so I don't have the mythology all figured out. But I think the worst performance was the villain, Busy Bee, whatever fucking Lugnut Chaser. Like she was literally the worst. Like
she's gone in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, but she comes back for in flashes, like whatever. But even her selling that moment to me, like, "Oh, a lug nut, I'll get it."
Yeah, that's her line. I'll get it.
Yeah, that was like. But it's weird because when you think about horror movies are usually built on the performances of their villains. Like you think about Nightmare on Elm Street or Silence of the Lambs. Like they're built on the villain performance, and I feel like the only even remotely average performance in the movie is actually Annabelle.
Yeah.
The doll's a better actor than...
The doll does have a scene. And then we can wrap up. The moment where the theater went, "Oh, shit," was when she had that gun.
Yep.
And it accidentally goes off, it hits Annabelle, and then the camera cuts back and forth, and then she looks at the doll, and it cuts Annabelle's head's turn looking at her like, "You motherfucker." Everyone was like, "Shit." She's pissed.
You did it now. Yeah,
I love that because the look on her eyes.
Oh, that was so good.
It was just like, I can't believe you did this. You're gonna pay.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome, and that was like one of the things that I really liked about the whole Annabelle setup was, she was one of the things one of the creepiest shots in the movie that I want to give a shout out to is there's a replica of the house in the house, right?
Yeah.
And when you first are introduced to it, Janice turns on the lights to it, and there's a little tiny figurine sitting in the house, like just kind of like patiently standing there with its hands clasped, and that fucking thing is creepy as shit. Annabelle the doll's creepy, but the little character in the dollhouse is creepy as shit.
Yeah,
dollhouses are fucking creepy, is what I'm saying.
Well, there was gonna be more if Annabelle hadn't got the lug nut, because it said on like the little pamphlet like dollhouse is coming soon.
Oh, that's right.
So he was gonna do more, but
that's right.
He only got one out. And
you only got one creepy fucking ass haunted.
And now like the whole house is kind of
fucked out. But there were some great shots in this movie where the camera was panning over someone's reaction through the dollhouse or over the roof of the dollhouse to what was actually happening in the room, and it was really cool it was cool that they made the miniature version of it creepy.
Yeah.
I might be the only person in the world who's creeped out by the Lego movie because I just find miniaturized things creepy.
Yeah.
Right. So like it was kind of creepy. So.
There's probably 3 other people. You're not alone. Probably.
Well, North Korea just miniaturized nuclear weapons. So
oh yeah, there you go.
Join the crowd.
There's one.
Right, exactly.
So, anyways, I would definitely recommend if you're looking for a good time, check out Annabelle Creation. Totally
yeah, but you should definitely see it in the theater because it's not you're gonna think to yourself, I'll just wait. I'll just watch it. I'll just rent it, like whatever. But because you're not gonna think there's a lot of special effects, and you're right, there's not. But there's amazing details you should see on a big screen. But even more importantly, the sound.
Yeah.
Unless you have like an incredible sound system, the sound is one of the things that really makes this movie.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, and when I first saw the trailer, I was like, they're doing a fucking sequel to Annabelle, and here I am telling you that I'm excited for The Nun, because if it is as good as this film, it will be highly enjoyable, and
and I'm enjoying this trend of prequels saving the ass of the movies that were already out there that sucked. So
I like that. That's something that horror should really be proud of, because it's usually strong opening and then just shit for 10 more films. Now they're like, do people like this concept? They do. Okay, now let's make it fucking good. And that's what they've done with Ouija.
We tried to cash in the first time, but now we're really gonna.
The girl, the one who didn't have polio in Annabelle. I need to look up what she's in. I could have sworn I seen her in another. She looks.
I'm sure.
She looked like the daughter from the second Conjuring. Almost.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean,
she did actually.
But also, just to add to this, Blumhouse, if you're listening, you're doing a wonderful job at building a shared universe, better than Universal.
Yeah, you're doing a better job than some people.
Because seeing Valak in the film was like, fucking Christ, I can't wait.
Yeah, and we went to the Scare LA convention in Los Angeles, and it was the first time that I had seen the tag Conjuring Universe, because
and that's why we keep mentioning it.
Right, we went to the VR Annabelle experience, whatever, and they were saying, Conjuring Universe, which I didn't realize they were building into whatever, but it's funny. I feel like in true Hollywood fashion, they accidentally discovered they wanted to do this, and they might be better off that they didn't think about it in advance and just accidentally stumbled into it. Because the people who try to plan it, there's a quote I read, I forget who the fuck said it. It might be like Andy Warhol or something. It was like, movies nowadays are just made by accountants.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like the whole problem with the Universal Dark Universe is they overthought it way in advance, right? Like whatever. And James Wan was just trying to make scary fucking fun movies. And then all of a sudden people were like, we could tie these together.
Oh, and it's
and it's better,
and it's enjoyable. It doesn't feel forced. Like I think they said the Mummy opened up with like the Dark Universe logo, and you're just like, that's not gonna work.
Nope.
So I mean, so far it might in the future, but it didn't with the Mummy.
No, it's never gonna work. The only thing that will happen is that there will be movies that I worked as a lifeguard, so. I've jumped into water to save people, and when you jump into water to save people, sometimes you find out that they are glad you're there because they want to climb over you and get to the top, and they don't care what happens to you. Doesn't matter. There will be movies in the Dark Universe that try to climb out of the shit and get their heads above water, but it won't save the Dark Universe. It's just going to kill whoever they climb over to get out.
Meanwhile, Annabelle is just like, we're fine on
that.
We're...
Meanwhile, Annabelle's like, Annabelle, like, what you dive in the water to try to save Annabelle, and she's just looking at you like, we're fine. What's your problem?
Fuck out of here.
Exactly. So kudos to fucking Blumhouse for pulling off what a much bigger and longer lived studio should have figured out by now.
Yeah, exactly. So there it is. There's our early review for Annabelle. Not to Annabelle Creation. I want to say
Annabelle -1.
Annabelle, yeah, Annabelle -1.
Right.
The Creation.
Yep.
So go out, check out Annabelle Creation, and stay scary. Bye, guys.